Hi students, welcome to the new session. Of course, we are revisiting the sessions and few topics. In that, today we will deal with evolution of psychology. Evolution is very close to history of psychology. So let's begin the session. So evolution of psychology. Evolution of psychology, as I said, it is close to history and developments of psychology. Okay. And here Here, if you can see psychology as a modern discipline which is influenced to a large extent by Western developments, has a short history. As I said, it is very close to philosophy and it has very recent history that is less than 100 years old. If you can see, that's what it is having a short history and it is very much influenced by the Western approach. And even it grew out as ancient philosophy concerned with questions of psychological significance. As I said, psychology has a large point of view impact on from philosophy side, and moreover, there is also we have to, uh, as I'm always saying that psychology is as very much close to human behavior. It is also to be noted that it is most of the connections will be into the philosophy. We mentioned earlier that formal beginning of modern psychology is tracked back to 1879 when the first experimental laboratory was established in Leipzig. We have studied earlier in the previous sessions that Wilhelm Wundt is the one who started first psychological laboratory, and it is the starting of you can say practical approach to psychology. Previously, it is most influenced by philosophy, and it is the first time where it is studied in a scientific method. Germany, Leipzig, Germany, by William Wundt. This Wundt was interested in the study of conscious experience and wanted to analyze the constituents or the building blocks of the mind. What Wundt in his experimental laboratory has developed a method which even he tries to understand the conscious experience. Once conscious, you can say what we are aware of now. We are conscious. When we are asleep, we will be subconscious. If someone is like in a coma or it is unconscious, you don't know what is happening around you. Okay, so he won't decided to study the conscious experience and how it is framed, how the uh, what you can say like how your thinking patterns are formed. Psychologists during William Wundt's time analyzed the structure of the mind through introspection. Introspection was a procedure in which individuals or subjects in psychological experiments were asked to describe in detail their own mental processes or experience. So Wundt decided to study conscious experience like in the building blocks, but what is the method used? He has a goal, but what is the method? The method used is introspection method. Introspection is nothing but it's a questioning. It is like even very much close to Socrates method. Introspection. Why I did this? How I did this? Like this one. Introspection. It is like a revisiting technique, and it has its own merits and demerits. the only client or the person who is introspecting will know the facts. The observer may not know the facts. So here, in this introspection method, they were asked to explain in detail about the mental process. What is all happening in the mind will be examined or interpreted in this introspection method. However, introspection as a method did not satisfy many other psychologists. It was considered less scientific because the introspective reports could not be verified by outside observers. This led to the development of new perspectives in psychology. That's as I said. The introspection method is very true to that particular person, the client. If he is saying something, I cannot analyze because it is his own experience. My experience is observation. What I observe only I can record. So that is the drawback of this method, and it gave rise to the another new methods or new perspectives. Next to it is an American psychologist, William James, who had set up a psychological laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Soon after setting up Leipzig laboratory, developed what was called functionalist approach to the study of human mind. So previously it is study of conscious experience through introspection method, and we discussed Wilhelm Wundt as a pioneer and the starting milestone of the psychology, modern psychology particularly. An American psychologist next. It is Germany, now it is America. It is United States. Germany is a different country and United States. Here the approach was functionalistic approach. The laboratory which was set up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the approach is functionalistic. Previously, I would like to recall you have to very like you can say you can put this information like it is Germany and Leipzig first experimental laboratory. Next, it is US Cambridge, Massachusetts psychological laboratory. Okay, William James believed that instead of focusing on the structure of mind, psychology should instead study what the mind does and how behavior functions in the making of deal with the environment. Next important psychologist is William James. William James believed that instead of focusing on the structure of the structure of the mind who focused, it is conscious and building blocks by William Wundt. Then he wants to have a new approach that is behavioral function, and what the mind function, the functioning of the mind. That is why it is called functionalistic approach. Okay, for example, functionalists focused on how behavior enabled people to satisfy their needs. If I am having hunger, I want to eat food. If I am thirsty, I'll drink water. The function is drinking water. But what is the need? It is the thirst. What is the need? It is the hunger. You're getting the difference, right? So that is how what is the functionality is focused on how behavior enables people. If I am angry, I may destruct the property. Angry is the emotion and the behavior is destruction. Hungry is an emotion. Eating food is a behavior. Okay, according to William James, consciousness as an ongoing stream of mental process interacting with the environment for the core of psychology. The core of the psychology, as I said, psychology, we know the definition. It is like it's the study of behavior, mental processes, and experiences. So mental process is the core of psychology. How it become? Because conscious experiences will deal with mental processes, right? So, and then a very influential educational thinker on the time, John Dewey, used functionalism to argue that Human beings seek to function effectively by adapting to their environment. What he is saying, even it is William James. Next, there comes John Dewey, who argues on behalf of functionalism, like human beings function according to the environment. Here, there is a second point. The first point is internal need, it is the external need. The environment factor also plays a key role. Okay. So in the earliest in the early 20th century, a new perspective. So far, we discussed Wundt's introspection method. Then we discussed William James and John Dewey. Next, it is structuralism. Okay, in the early 20th century, previously it is 19th century, 1879, which we discussed is 19th century. Now we came to the 20th century. 20th century is 1900 to 2000. So in the earlier 20th century, a new perspective called Gestalt psychology emerged in Germany as a reaction to the structuralism of Wundt. Here, there is also the new word introduced. Structuralism is referred by Wundt. It is like the structure of the mind or the consciousness through the building blocks. So Gestaltism, structuralism, functionalism, and Gestaltism. Gestalt psychology is emerged in 20th century, and again we are going to Germany. First it is Germany, then it is US, that is Massachusetts, and then now again it is Germany. It is focused on the organization of perceptual experiences. Like even previously it is mental process, now it is perceptual process. How you perceive, how you perceive information. You perceive information from the sensory organs. Okay, instead of looking at the components of mind, the Gestalt psychologists argued that when we look at the world, our perceptual experiences is more than the sum of components of the perception. In the earlier sessions, we discussed about, like you can see, you can call it as a matchbox, even though if there are the matchsticks in the box, matchsticks are there, there is a cover and there is a wrap, right? But what do you call it? It as a matchbox. You will not call it a matchstick, though there are different components. When you collectively see it, it is a matchbox. And even a human body, you will not call as this is a brain, this is a nose. You call it as a body. Like that's what it is, the overall experience. That's what Gestalt psychologists say. When you see an object, if you are seeing me, you are seeing the background and me, but you will see the whole picture as at one. You will not see me and my background at once and the screen as once, right? So that's how the perceptual experience is. Perceptual experience, the whole experience is different from the sum of the components of the experience. Okay, next. In other words, what we experience is more than the inputs received from the environment. It is also really very important in this one, Gestaltism. If you, as I see, it is not the, when you're, like we can take an example, when you look at a bird on a tree, you will see the whole picture, not as a bird, tree, then the whole canvas, right? The whole canvas is processed at once. That is what Gestalt principles are saying. There are principles of closure, principles of similarity. So there are some principles of perception we can study later. When, for example, light from a series of flashing bulbs falls on our retina, we actually experience a movement of light. See, for example, if you can see the functions or some auspicious ray, people put some series of lights. Like, okay, in that you will not separate it, you will see as a flow. When the lights are blinking on and off, on and off, on and off, the first bulb on and off, second bulb on and off, third bulb on and off, there will be thousands of bulbs, but when it goes you will see it as a series. You will see it as a movement but not as a single functioning. Okay, when we see a movie, we actually have a series of rapidly moving images of still pictures falling on our retina. Previously, there will be a box. Previously, now the system has changed. Like digital has come. Previously, if you can see the photographs, there will be a negative film. The film will be running, and the voice is also exhibiting. This box, that was example, like this, as the textbook is a bit older, that example is apt only. You can get more examples, you can write on your own, but then when the negative rolls, the negative film rolls, you will get the picture movement of that. Okay, thus even people used to draw separate cards for a story making. Thus our perceptual experience is more than the elements. Experience is holistic, it is a gestalt. Experience is holistic, not individual. That's what the whole picture you are seeing. Okay, thus our perception experience is more than the elements. As I said, what is the element on your screen? The element on the screen is background. That's the cupboard. The element, I am an element, and the whole screen is an element. You will not see. You will see the whole picture as one. We will learn more about Gestaltism when we discuss about nature of perception in chapter 5. Here it is saying that chapter 5 there will be a detail, so definitely we can discuss them at there. Okay, next. Yet another reaction to structuralism came in the form of behaviorism. Previously, when the structuralism introspection method is argued, we got functionalism. After the functionalism have two aspects, that is internal need and external environmental factors. Next come the Gestalt, and then now it is behaviorism. In the 20th century, the second one is behaviorism. And another reaction to structuralism, particularly it is about the study of consciousness. Around 1910, John Watson rejected the ideas of mind and consciousness as subject matters of psychology. Gestalt is a group of psychologists, it is not an individual. And next there comes John Watson. He rejected the ideas of mind and consciousness, which the William Wundt has worked on. He was greatly influenced by the work of psychologists like Ivan Pavlov on classical conditioning. Okay, who is the person? John Watson. Which theory he is influenced? It is Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning theory. For Watson, the mind is not observable and introspection is subjective because it cannot be verified by other observer. So he raised the same point as the functionalist. So in the mind is not observable. Like brain can be observed. It can be like we have what you can say fMRI, EEG for brain imagining techniques. But what is the real point? The mind functioning cannot be imagined, right? So then, according to him, scientific psychology must focus on what is observable and verifiable. The scientific method, which is observable, verifiable, and replicable. In that manner, even James Watson has suggested that psychology must focus on very scientific method that is observable and verifiable. He defined psychology as a study of behavior or responses to stimuli which can be measured and studied objectively. Here, here he tried to apply two methods, which is observable and verifiable, right? So in that way, what is he mean? He means the responses, the reactions, the stimulus. We discussed the stimulus and responses SOR model. For more details, you can check or get back to me. And then behaviorism of Watson was further developed by many influential psychologists who are known as behaviorists. Watson was the key person for behaviorism. So far we discussed structuralism, functionalism, gestaltism, and then now behaviorism. Who is the person? James Watson. Most prominent among them was Skinner. Skinner was previously we discussed Pavlov classical conditioning, and then here comes Skinner's operant conditioning theory, applied behaviorism to a wide range of situations and popularized the approach. We will discuss Skinner work later in the chapters. So, how he applied behaviorism to a wide range of situations and popularized the approach. So, even today, behavioral therapy or behaviorism is still effective because as we are dealing with the human behavior, it's still effective. Although behaviorists dominated the field as of now, like cognitive psychology is dominating neuropsychology, machine learning, artificial dominated. Then there was the behaviorists dominated the field for several decades after Watson. Even though Watson left his physical world, it continued and it is a revolutionary approach. A number of approaches and views about psychology and its subject matter were developing around the same time. In the same time, during Watson, there is also thing that things are developing around and the new approaches are coming. One person who shook the world with his radical view of human nature was Sigmund Freud. So behaviorism, we said we seen the behaviorism, structuralism, functionalism, gestaltism, and now it is behaviorism. And then there is another one, like we discussed so far about Ivan Pavlov, Skinner, and then now here comes Sigmund Freud. Okay, so Sigmund Freud is a very famous person, viewed human behavior as a dynamic manifestation of unconscious desires. It is unconscious desires and conflicts. He founded psychoanalysis as a system to understand and cure. Psychoanalysis viewed human beings as motivated by unconscious desire for gratification of pleasure seeking desires. Okay, the humanistic perspective in psychology took a more positive view of human nature. Here, it is psychoanalysis, it is a part of behaviorism, and then there comes humanistic approach, humanistic perspective. As a physical human being, you have some needs that can be desires, and then next it comes human perspective, humanistic perspective in psychology. Humanists such as Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow emphasize that the free will of human being and their natural striving to grow. And then let's see here, if you can see like the psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud, it is the person Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow on this humanistic perspective. It is behavioral perspective, and then now it is humanistic perspective. Here comes their I'm sorry. Unfold their inner potential. They argued that behaviorism, with its emphasis on behavior as determined by environmental conditions, undermines human freedom and dignity and takes a mechanistic view of human nature. There, the psychoanalysis is behavioristic perspective, and then this is another dimension. Like in functionalism, we have seen two factors, and even behavioristic perspective, we see two factors. This in this humanistic perspective, humanistic approach, the environmental conditions are also really important. These different approaches build the history of modern psychology and provided multiple perspectives, has its own focus and draws attention to the complexity of psychological processes. As being himself as complex, and humans methods are very complex. This is there we discussed a few schools from the Western side, particularly in the modern psychology. It is the so far development. We have seen 19th and 20th centuries. There are strengths as well weakness in each approach. Some of these approaches have led to further developments in the discipline aspect of Gestalt approach, Structuralism. Here, he also combines Gestalt approach and Structuralism and led to the development of cognitive perspective. Previously, it is behavioral perspective, and then the new approach is cognitive perspective, which focuses on how we know about the world. It focuses on how we know about the world. Cognition is the process of knowing. It involves thinking, understanding, perceiving, and memorizing. And then problem solving and a host of the other mental process by which our knowledge of the world develops, making us able to deal with the environment in specific ways. Okay, here there comes a new approach which is cognitive perspective. In this, mental processes which are higher, like problem solving, these come into picture. Some cognitive psychologists view human mind as an information processing system like the computers. Previously, it is humanistic perspective. Now, it is the cognitive perspective, which see as a very practical way. Cognitive psychologists see human being as a very practical way. Okay, then mind, according to this view, is like a computer and receives, processes, transforms, stores, retrieve information. Like, see, mind, what is it? We have some memory, we have learning, we have perception, we have some other emotions. So in that way, the broad wants to know that computer, it's like a computer process informations and stores information. The mind cognitive processes assumes as a as a what you can say cognitive and mental process. Modern cognitive psychology views human beings as actively constructing their minds through their exploration into the physical and social world. What the modern cognitive psychology says, it goes with the flow and concentrate on the environmental side, physical side, and social side. And there comes the next one. This view, what is cognitive psychology, when actively constructing their minds and exploring physical and this perfect issue, this view is sometimes called constructivism. Piaget's view of child development, which will be discussed later, considered as constructivist theory, development of mind. And there is Piaget's view, like levels of growth we will be discussing. Here, his new theory is constructivist theory. Another Russian psychologist, Vygotsky, went even further to suggest that human mind develops the mind through social and cultural process in which mind is viewed as culturally constructed through joint interactions between adults and children. So there comes after cognitive approach, the constructive theory. It is like spending time together. Vygotsky is really important. So there ends the development of psychology. In the next video, we will see the evolution, the key areas, and then development of psychology in India. So this ends. It gives a brief approach for you. I hope so. And if you have any queries, please reach to me. Okay. So that's how I end the session. Hope you understand this one. William Hoon, Structuralism, Functionalism, Gestaltism. There is Humanistic Approach, Cognitive Approach, Constructivist Approach. Try to gather 5 to 6 schools of psychology are the part of evolution, and you can write as much as you can. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day.